Alright everyone, so we have another video here from Hot Boy Spicy. This one is called Why Naruto Was So Special Resolution in Naruto. Now before we watch the video guys, as always I gotta remind you that if you like what you see here on the channel, consider leaving a like, sharing the video, subscribe if you haven't, make sure to hit the bell for notifications, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and as always guys, check the description for links to this video as well as Hot Boy Spicy's channel. Make sure you head on over there, subscribe to him, watch his videos, and go show him some support, and do that with any other content creator we react to here on this channel. So with that being said, let's go ahead and watch this video about why Naruto was so special.
Talk no jutsu. It's a topic covered on this platform before, and I myself have even discussed it in every single Naruto analysis
By the way, we reacted to both those videos. You can go find them
I'll make an exception
on the channel.
here, because while this subject has already been elaborated on before, how I specifically touch on it will at least be unique. As someone who makes Naruto analysis content, it's only inevitable that I eventually fixate on this in-story phenomenon, because to me, it is not only one of the most profound messages in fiction, but it is what makes Naruto so special. In a world where children are bred to be tools of war, to mature much faster than they otherwise should, it only makes sense that this same world would allow for an environment that tests the upper limits of this rapid maturity. The Blood Mist Village earned its epithet tenfold. Even the idea of camaraderie is taught to only be a facade, crumbling at any given moment. When it's the mission over the missioned, what good does friendship do if it has more potential to end like the graduation exam rather than any perceivable positive outcome? This was Zabuza's most profound lesson, not only because of what he did, but when he did it. When a child observes the world around them, they are acquiring a base, and if that base is tainted from the offset, only despair can be built on top. Zabuza learned what it meant to be a tool. Yet, even in his naivety, he could never fully submit to the fate given to his kind. Even after escaping the presence over him, he tries to usurp it, claiming an ambition that takes all of the darkness for himself, perhaps out of wrath against the land that only used him, or perhaps a subliminal yearning in his subconscious, a thought testing the perception of his own existence. If he truly is more than a tool the Hidden Mist created, then he could prove it by taking this land for himself. Since he was molded by the shinobi world, it's surely apt to prove his worth in that same setting, recreating his ultimate lesson on a massive scale, first with his comrades in the graduation exam, and eventually with those ruling over the village. Both scenarios end with him standing alone at the top. Zabuza, though, in all his blindness, could not see that the answer he sought was right in front of him, because he is not alone. Not anymore. Even if Zabuza were to use him like he was once used, there's a massive distinction in Haku's actions. One sacrifice compelled out of obligation, the other born from love. Zabuza was caged by his homeland, and became a rabid dog after releasing himself from the chains that binded him. Yet Haku never feels the desire to escape from a circumstance even ending in death, because it is not for a mission, but for another. Haku dies proving the worth in human emotion. And Kakashi only bolsters the message with the leverage he gains immediately after. Zabuza cannot understand why Kakashi seems more powerful than before.
Yeah, see, this is again one of the things that I love about what Kishimoto does as a writer, where he tells you what's happening without actually telling you what's happening. And what I mean by that is, we know that in Naruto, you know, your performance in a fight is like, it's based on both your mental and like the state of your mental and physical chakra, right? Like, you know how chakra is both mental and physical, right? Okay, so that's how it's explained to us in this arc actually. And we know that in the lore, shinobi, in order to perform to the best of their abilities, you have to be there both mentally and physically, right? You need to make sure there's a proper balance between the two, so you can perform to, like I said, the best of your abilities. But with Zabuza, what I love here is that it isn't that Kakashi just out of nowhere got incredibly stronger. It's that Zabuza got a lot weaker because he was continuously lying to himself and telling himself that, you know, Haku, you did what I wanted you to do, you became a tool, basically acting like he doesn't give he doesn't give a shit whether Haku gave his life for him, when in reality we know he does. We know that he always cared about Haku. He's cared about him for a long time, and now that he's dead, it has affected him, but he won't admit it to himself, and that's why he's not performing as well as he used to, like a few minutes before this, when he was just giving Kakashi a really difficult time, with the hidden miss jutsu, and completely blinding his Sharingan, taking away one of his like most powerful taking away one of his most powerful assets, and then Kakashi had to find a way to work around it. But then when Haku died, it's like the guy could barely move, and even Kakashi mentions it, telling him like right now, dude, you're completely pathetic, like you can barely even walk. And yeah, it all has to do with, again, how Kishimoto likes to write his story, where he like he'll, like I said, he'll tell you something without actually telling you something. And I've always loved that about his writing.
Kakashi seems more powerful than before, when in reality, Kakashi never upgraded at all.
No.
Zabuza merely
Yep.
became weaker, because a part of his power, a part of him was gone forever, never to return. Whereas Kakashi is still being fueled by the comrades behind him, the resolve to protect their lives, maintaining his combative prowess. For two men that grew up with similar bases, it's fitting that they would eventually clash in such a decisive setting. Kakashi had someone who taught him the value in his father's actions, but Zabuza never even gave himself the chance to listen. And it is a fragment of this very strength Kakashi utilizes that forces Zabuza to listen, one out of several comrades behind him. Yet for the first time in this arc, Naruto walks in front of Kakashi, his idea of facing the enemy a novel one. Even though both parties' objectives have changed, Naruto still sees an impeding wall in front of him. He speaks with Zabuza not because it's necessary for the mission at hand, but because Zabuza's way of life goes against everything Iruka taught him on that fateful night. It goes against the words of Kakashi's first lesson, the words that changed his base all those years ago. Yet those words were exchanged from one comrade to another, where Iruka's words are directed at a boy harboring his greatest enemy. So Naruto too would not only look at his comrades, but his enemies as well. If Naruto could be changed from the loser fox monster to Shinobi of the Hidden Leaf, then surely the demon of the mist could become Zabuza, a human. Naruto, once a boy but forced to become a man, looks at another just like him. They are alike, both he and Zabuza, because all shinobi, no matter what land, are cursed by the same dogma. Instead of looking at Zabuza's actions, Naruto chooses to look at the picture as a whole, just like Iruka did when he wept for the boy he had looked away from for so long. Naruto weeps for Haku, for Zabuza, and Zabuza weeps as well for Haku, for his misguided self. And all it takes, all it ever took, was for someone to look at Zabuza, not the demon of the mist. Naruto prevails by going a step beyond success, not defeating the enemy, but transforming that enemy into an ally. From the very start of his journey, Naruto finds his greatest strength, not in his latent power, but his words. With life comes conflict. As long as there is one side, another will oppose it. As long as one cursed soul finds salvation, another will still be lingering in the darkness. And if these two sides come to know one another, they will inevitably clash. But it takes much more than mere conflict to achieve resolution. At the offset, Gaara seems so unlike our main character. He talks to Sasuke as if they are peers in a different world from the rest. Yet he cannot see that he's much more comparable to Sasuke's goofy counterpart.
Mm-hmm.
It's because Naruto's eyes are different. Eyes that had found salvation where Gaara had not. And of course he hadn't, because Gaara's salvation, his Iruka, was a facade all along. One fateful night of redemption, another of damnation. Each event only encompassing a
which we find out later on turned out to be complete BS, and that Yashimaru did actually care about Gaara, but he was just, following a mission that was given to him by his dad, which was, I mean, seriously, like, Gaara is definitely one of the most interesting characters in the entire series. And it's just, again, like, it's a testament to Kishimoto's writing. And it's not that, I always find it interesting whenever, you look at a story, and especially one that's well known, and you were to ask someone, hey, in this story, who would you say is your favorite character? Almost all of them would say a character that isn't usually the main character. Like let's take Naruto for example. I'm willing to bet if you were to ask most people who your favorite character is, I'm willing to bet most of them would say a character that isn't Naruto Uzumaki. They'll say maybe Gara or Itachi or Madara or Orochimaru or Sasuke or Jiraiya, of course, Pain, or Nagato. They'll always answer with a character that isn't the MC, and I always find that interesting because it's not just in Naruto. That's the case in a lot of stories, even in Shonen. Like, I'm sure if you were to ask people like who's your favorite character in Bleach, they'll say a character that isn't Ichigo, at least most of them. Or how about in One Piece, they'll say a character that isn't Luffy. And again, it's not because these main characters are poorly written. No, far from it. It's just that usually, and I don't know, I honestly don't know why this is the case, but usually in stories, the more interesting characters are ones that are not the main character. And I honestly don't know why that's the case. And yeah, Gara is absolutely one of them. And it's just like, the more you know about his backstory, the more you feel for him, because it's like, I mean, you can't imagine anyone going through what a lot of these characters went through, especially Itachi. Like the things that he went through, excuse me, when he was still like 13 or 14 years old, is just it's crazy. And again, it's one of those things that you honestly wouldn't wish on anyone. And yeah, it's just I love these characters, all of them. And yes, includes Naruto, even though Kishimoto made some decisions with him later on that I'm not really a fan of, but still like the character.
These characters' lives, yet shaping their entire everyday existence onwards. Naruto's ideology is put to the test in the final exam. Neji's words do in fact hit home with a man like Naruto. A cursed fate, inescapable doom. But it wasn't fate, it was all always circumstantial. Just like how Naruto can grin warmly now, even after experiencing almost identical pain as the man who can only muster a contorted smile. These immense distinctions arose from one mere night, and Naruto would prove this phenomenon to be true in one mere fight. Neji's initial observation is wrong. Naruto's most prominent fate has nothing to do with him being a failure, but rather a monster. What seemed to damn him long before he even had a chance to fail was what lurked inside. Neji, however, cannot see this. He cannot see the hypocritical nature of his actions when compared to his words. He cannot see Naruto's latent potential that signifies him as far from a failure. And, most importantly, he cannot see a bright future for himself. As long as there is a mark on him, his future will continue to be bleak. But Naruto has a similar mark, one that also easily controls fate. Yet here, Naruto fights against that notion, using the power that once defined his cursed fate productively to prove a point. A point about having the power to change. But this final strike from our knucklehead ninja is not the end. Because here Naruto stands, ending a combative match with a speech to the fallen. The actual contents of this exam battle having no impact on Naruto's progression. He stays a Genin even after this victory. But what he does gain, he gains through his words. A new ally. An ally that would return the favor much later, not because destiny compels him to protect the main family, but because he wanted to protect his cousin, his friend. Where Naruto wins this battle by taking control of the fate that binded him, Gaara would lose his after letting his power control him. The fear Naruto has when faced with someone so alike, yet so different from himself is understandable. Gaara, after all, is a mirror of what Naruto could very well be if it wasn't for that singular encounter. But this is all the more reason he should fight. If anyone can reach Gaara, it would surely be one of the only men that can truly understand him. And understand him he does. When both are weakened, incapable of standing, Naruto uses his ultimate weapon once again, his idea of resolution. Gaara would not come back an enemy, but an ally of the Leaf, and once again as the revered Kazekage. And even still, much later, this road of redemption would lead him to finding closure with his dark past. And all it ever took was for someone to look at Gaara, not the monster of the sand.
Sorry, you guys know I gotta be careful with music.
Naruto, as unconscious now as it may be, has actively been doing much more than simply winning his battles. Yet ironically, Sasuke is the first character that vocalizes a phenomenon that is similar to Naruto's current abilities, yet goes even beyond them. If one could understand everything about a person merely through an exchange of blows, then all that's left is to solve those problems, something Naruto has already been doing. But it's a process. Naruto can never do anything without that empathy. Empathy derived from experiencing similar pain as his adversaries. If it takes understanding to achieve resolution, then this phenomenon experienced by high-level shinobi must be the perfect solution to conflict. While it seems paradoxical to say that conflict leads to peace, it is the only way Naruto has ever saved anyone. It is through conflict that he himself was saved. Sasuke actively seeks conflict. He does so to progress. It is through strife that one becomes stronger. Can you read what's in my heart, Naruto? He taunts. Yet he does not throw those same words back at himself. He believes himself to be a great enough shinobi, but refuses to acknowledge Naruto as on par. They cannot connect because Naruto is still lacking, and lacking he is. But, unknown to Sasuke, he is lacking as well. They could not understand each other because they had yet to fully grasp themselves. Naruto had been confronted with opponents he could conveniently connect with due to his past experiences. But here, the only thing he can relate to with his rival is solitude. It's painful, yes, but for a man who knows it and is willfully subjecting himself to it again, how could Naruto ever understand something as ludicrous as that? He knows what it means to be vengeful as a result of circumstance, not what it means to be vengeful as a result of a calculated atrocity. This, though, is the most ironic aspect of this entire fight, because for both characters, it's actually the opposite. The true origin of Naruto's suffering was planned destruction, and the true root of Sasuke's was a circumstantial ultimatum. As I said, how can these two opposites ever connect when they cannot even distinguish the differences that shape them as diametrical in the first place? Naruto loses on this path when faced with the unknown, but Sasuke is no different. His current path too would end the same way, but it would take longer. Thus, it would be all the more painful. Naruto, failing where he always succeeded, diverges from his previous self. He can't use the Nine Tails like he did against Neji.
No.
He can't be the one to save the people around him. He can't persuade Sasuke to listen like he once had before. He doesn't even attempt to look at his opponents anymore, only looking through them. Quite similar to his rival, yes, a new avenue by which to further understand him. But if he continued down this road, even Sasuke would eventually be just another obstacle. And when two combatants view each other as mere obstacles, that is how the cycle of conflict perpetuates. As odd as it may seem, Naruto parallels
it's interesting to me, and I just want to say this real quick, but it's interesting to me that a lot of people don't actually talk about how good the Konoha Crush arc is. Or no, not the Konoha Crush, excuse me, Akatsuki Suppression. I don't know why I said Konoha Crush, that was something else. But the Akatsuki Suppression arc is because it's, again, like the writing in it is absolutely amazing. And the thing is, I think for me personally, this is just my opinion, maybe other people disagree. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments. For me personally, I think that it's not because the arc is just poorly written. I think it's because, you know, possibly what comes after that was just so good that that the Akatsuki Suppression arc by comparison just doesn't, like, it kind of gets you know, forgotten about a little bit, because I think after this was the Pain, or yeah, Pain versus Jiraiya, and of course the Sasuke versus Itachi fight. Yeah, I think that came after this, and that's where or no, was it? Yeah, I think that came after this. Yeah, this it definitely, yeah, it was the Akatsuki Suppression, and then the Pain versus Jiraiya and Itachi versus Naruto fight. Yeah, it did come after this, and I think that because of that, those fights were just so good that this part of the story kind of gets forgotten about. but I don't think it takes away from just how well written this arc actually is, or at least this part of the story. I don't know if the Pain and Itachi fights were a part of the Akatsuki suppression arc, or if it were, or if both of them were their own thing. Um, yeah, so I don't know, but for me, yeah, just the thing with Naruto training to, uh, you know, create the Rasen Shuriken, and of course you have Shikamaru and him dealing with the loss of Asuma and having to grow up and finally like moving past the moving past that phase in his life where he just treated everything like it was, a drag and everything, and him finally, growing up, which I think was sort of part of the whole theme of this part of the story, at least, which is that you have to every now and then you kind of have to grow up. And then what Shikamaru learns here, he ends up teaching to Naruto later on when he was still, still grieving over losing Jiraiya. And I love this, and I don't think it gets talked about enough.
His adversaries in this section of the story, Kakuzu does not see the individual, only their transactional worth. Hidan does not see a person, but instead a sacrifice to his god. Naruto does not see.
So just sorry, another thing that I kind of want to say right here. So I don't know if you guys have heard this whole, and I think we did discuss it in a previous video, which I think I had to kind of unlist because I heard that some people were going around like reporting that video to YouTube, and then the people who reacted to it kind of got in trouble. So I had to unlist the video. I don't know, maybe I'll put it back up eventually, but I kind of want to wait a bit until I feel like it's safe. But I don't know if you guys have heard the whole Jashin Otsutsuki thing. Just thought I'd maybe like give quick thoughts on it since it's here. Personally, I don't know if it's true. I mean, it just seems a little bit weird. I feel like it's just one of those things where, I mean, not everything has to be connected to Otsutsuki. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Kishimoto did do that eventually. Maybe he'll do it in the current series. Maybe he'll do it in Boruto. I don't know, since it seems to be all about Otsutsuki. They have hinted that there are other Otsutsuki clan members out there, so maybe we'll see them eventually. I don't know, and maybe Jashin will be one of them. And that's just because some people have theorized that his ability has to do with granting people immortality, and they have to repay the favor by making sacrifices, and then like something to do with the sacrifices life force gets transferred to Jashin, and that's how he continues living. Like that's his form of immortality, because that seems to be the thing with the Otsutsuki, is doing whatever it takes to make sure their clan survives until until literally the end of the universe or something. So maybe that's what like Jashin's whole thing. Everyone else just eats the whole chakra fruit, but planting the divine tree, growing the chakra fruit, eating it, and his whole thing is just, oh, I'm gonna go to planets, give them immortality, and as payment they have to make sacrifices, and then those sacrifices, life force comes to me, and that it extends my life. And I don't know, for me personally, I don't care. I kind of am at a place where I'm hoping they would move away from Otsutsuki, but it seems like that's not going to happen. So I don't know, maybe. So just quick thoughts on that whole theory. Just the second I saw Hidan, it immediately brought that back into my head. So I kind of just wanted to talk about it for a bit.
To his god, Naruto does not see a lost man in a tragic world when he looks at Kakuzu, only a blockade that needs to be surmounted. All three blinded by the concept of victory. Where Naruto once looked beyond it, he can't even see beyond himself anymore. All these recent failures, the crippling gap between him and his goal, and his looming darkness that only exploits all of these shortcomings. His path takes a turn for the worse, if you can even call it a path, because Naruto is more lost than he ever was before. Even when Kabuto tries to secure common ground with his previous foe, Naruto doesn't even attempt to listen. Where he once so naturally exploited the contradictions in his opposition, he is now still riding on the failures ignited by his hypocrisy in the final valley. Kabuto's contradiction is blatant. So blatant, in fact, that if Naruto even glanced in his direction, it couldn't be missed. A man who talks of finding his own identity by absorbing the identity of others. There's nothing more backwards than that. He accomplishes nothing by looking past Kabuto, learns nothing by looking past Itachi, and fails once again in retrieving Sasuke after looking past Tobi. Even previously with Kakuzu, when it seemed like he did in fact accomplish something, that too was later revealed to be more harmful than beneficial. Yet his comrade in the very same battlefield flourishes. Shikamaru, just like the others, just like every shinobi, looks through his foes. But he succeeds where Naruto does not, because Shikamaru's journey is not about his ability to understand, but rather his ability to grasp the torch that was passed on to him, maintaining that flame until another can inherit it. After enduring an outcome that leads to his worst despair,
By the way, I still hate that both the anime and now even the I think it's just in the Viz version where they actually censored like they actually censored something here, because in the manga originally, again before Viz for some reason censored it, Shikamaru was actually smoking a cigarette here. And even later on when where is it? Let me see if I can find it.
after enduring an outcome that leads to his worst.
Yeah, here, even in the manga as well, like he was smoking a cigarette, which again, I don't know why they censored like all the things they have in the series, and smoking is what they choose to censor. And again, this is just like I hate censorship. I hate it with everything.
Despair, Shikamaru does not think of revenge, but
And this one, I just again like it goes into one of the reasons why I love this arc, because it has, and this is just in the anime mostly, but it has one of my favorite episodes in the entire anime. This episode right here, where they change the art style of the look to where it feels a lot like a movie actually. Because if you saw the let's say for example, if you saw the last Naruto the movie, that's what it looked like this episode. And I love it because it actually shows you Shikamaru grieving, whereas in the manga, and this is one of the instances where the anime did it actually better than the manga in my opinion, they actually showed you Shikamaru like at the beginning he's just going through the motions, and it isn't until his dad confronts him that he, you know, finally just, you know, like his dad says, he lets it out, and it was just beautifully done. And I love this episode.
of revenge, but a cooperative plan where he and his comrades can accomplish what his predecessor could not, to inherit and to surpass, thus leaving room for each generation to bloom more than the last. This is Shikamaru's ninja way, which is why Kakashi lectures Sasuke, but cooperates with Shikamaru, despite both targeting members of the Akatsuki. Revenge is a blunt tool used to carve out hatred from oneself, but Shikamaru's weapon is different and very sharp when pointed at the enemies at hand. For those who only look at themselves as extensions of themselves, they perish by the plan of a man who sees himself as an extension of the will of fire. Hidan and Kakuzu's paths are centered around accumulating more for themselves. Kakuzu obsessed with monetary gain, Hidan obsessed with his god's graces showering upon him. Yet Shikamaru, as inherently stationary as he may be, becomes obsessed with moving forward, not for his own benefit, but for the flourishment of the ones succeeding him. And this vision locked in the
Because he
future is what
makes a promise to Asuma to take care of the future generation, and that's one of the lessons that's, you know, taught in this arc, which is that, you know, everything you do, you have to do it for the next generation, so that when they grow up, they'll be ready to, you know, pick up the mantle and they'll move it forward, and then eventually they'll pass it on to the next generation, which is one of the lessons being taught in this arc specifically. Same thing, of course, to parallel that, you have Naruto learning to incorporate a change in chakra nature into the Rasengan, something that something that his father, the one who created the technique, and something that his mentor Kakashi weren't capable of doing.
cements the future demise of his opposition, for all they can see is their present desires. Shikamaru's conflict ends in complete success, where Naruto's ends in success only partially, one staying true to his ninja way.
See, again, like that's what I don't get right here. See,
one staying
See, they're showing Asuma smoking. That's fine, but for some reason, when Shikamaru was doing it in the manga, they chose to censor that. I mean, does it have to do with Shikamaru still being a kid and Asuma was an adult? Is that it? Like they thought that, oh, if kids saw Shikamaru smoking, they'll want to go out and buy a pack or something? Is that what they were afraid of?
true to his ninja way, the other losing sight of his long ago. Hidan and Kakuzu do not receive redemption, because Naruto had yet to redeem himself. Shikamaru redeems himself by the conclusion of this conflict, which is why it makes perfect sense that it is not only Iruka, but Shikamaru that spur Naruto forward once again. Shikamaru takes the lesson that he carried along with him through that battle and uses it again here. He can't help the world's broader problem, but his ideology can help lift the man who will. Iruka's words soften the blow, but Shikamaru's words put Iruka's into perspective. Naruto has failed many times in his recent conflicts, but that's been the narrative for the vast majority of his life. He found his hottest success streak when he stuck to his novel way of facing opposition. To achieve victory, he would have to find that path once more. But this time, Naruto would have to do more than just that, for his next enemy would require a level of maturity beyond empathy.
Okay, I feel like I know which song he's gonna play, and yeah, I gotta lower the volume. Sorry, guys. Yeah. Okay, we should be good now.
Kakashi, then Hinata. The sequential line of suffering Naruto encounters is sudden. No time to mourn Jiraiya, no time to lament not being there for Kakashi, and no time to fight against wrath when a fallen comrade lies damaged in front of him. Such is pain. A swift whimper, and then eternal silence. Something precious can dissipate in seconds, as if all those memories shared amount to merely that, against the cruel fate of timeless violence. A fate Nagato witnessed twice too many, and a fate Naruto is now coming to know. A man can never be impervious to this pain, but a god, surely a god can. If pain can scar even the best of men, then it isn't absurd to say the very concept of pain can be considered divine, to take pain as a namesake, thus diagnosing divinity. The prescription to ascend pain being to experience it. Nagato believes it to have cured his mortal immaturity, so by spreading his prescription universally, then perhaps the entire world would come to mature as well. But he, Nagato, could never become pain. He could never truly become a god. Against Jiraiya, he feigns apathy for Yahiko's memory, yet he reveals his true human emotions against Naruto. I will never forget Yahiko's pain. This is not an utterance from the lips of the divine. This is not the phrase of a god immune to pain.
Yeah, that was
seeks
Nagato.
liberation from the vicious cycle.
That was one of the few times where Nagato slipped through and the whole pain persona just kind of went away.
Of violence through violence. He believes this avenue to be righteous because he deludes the reality of his position. Those who are above pain are different when they spread it, because it is aligned with purpose. A purpose called peace. But Nagato's purpose is blighted on two fronts. His first blight, a perpetuation of the same cycle he had come to despise with his actions. He was hurt, after all, and that hurt has lingered with him even now. He has never been above it. This is not a method for world peace, but a method for retribution. Retribution against the world. And this idea is only solidified with his second blight, his compromise. Nagato had given up. Any peace he could possibly acquire, even with his godly means, could only ever be temporary. After the dust settles, and the destruction is hidden by something new built on top, the masses will eventually forget the perpetrator. They will forget pain. No method will last. No peace can usurp the inevitability of conflict. At the very least,
and
Nagato is sound on step one of the equation. He is correct. Conflict is an inevitable factor.
It's unfortunate, but it is.
This is the same reason why he, a human, is propagating so much conflict now. But Naruto shows him a different step too. After experiencing pain, enduring it, and even enduring his preceding hatred, Naruto faces his sibling disciple with a different answer. That answer not necessarily being conveyed through his words, but his actions, or rather, his lack of action. Naruto was previously speechless when confronted with Nagato's solution, because he, much like his enemy, had yet to confront his pain. I'm going to kill you, then bring peace to the ninja world. That wasn't Naruto talking, but his hatred. Hatred for the one who killed his master, his sensei. If those were not Naruto's words, then would his hatred bring the peace he desires? No, of course it wouldn't. Naruto himself didn't believe this. Hatred merely clouded his words. He didn't hate Zabuza, didn't hate Gaara, didn't hate Sasuke, and did not even hate Kakuzu. But here, Naruto is faced with a man he has every reason to despise. His wrath would be justified, just as Nagato believes his wrath towards the world to be justified. Naruto, however, does not even strike when confronted with the face of pain, because he had already struck down the true face of pain immediately before this meeting. His enemy was never Nagato, but pain. He conquered his, now it is time to help conquer Nagato's. Naruto didn't conquer his alone, after all. If it were not for Minato,
Yeah,
Naruto would have
he
never
had
even
Minato's
a
help.
chance. And if it were not for Iruka, he might have already crushed the leaf long before Nagato ever could. Naruto looks at his enemy, a path that was once lost, now finally retrieved. He doesn't just see a propagator of pain, but a victim as well. In order to save Nagato, he would have to reveal the answer he couldn't muster back then. It's an answer that doesn't even have a solution, but what it does have is a step that truly transcends pain. If the Shinobi Way is one defined by conflict, then it's only the first chapter of a much bigger story, because Naruto's second chapter is defined by endurance, a chapter inspired by the theme of his master's whole original story, the tale of a man who does not conform to the hypocrisy of shinobi, those who aspire to be emotionless tools, when it is that very emotion which compels them to be emotionless in the first place. These human emotions fueling wars that necessitate tools in a ceaseless cycle. This man simply stands against a dreadful curse plaguing the world, but that alone makes it a novel story. In this hero who aspires to attack the parasite, not its host, his name is Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto, turning fiction into reality in the midst of his opposition. He confronts Nagato with the words he once inspired. This is all his cursed soul ever needed. Someone to not only look at him, but to show him where his failings lurk. Naruto emerges as a proponent of endurance, and demonstrates clearly where the merit in it lies. And so Nagato too is saved by another, enduring his hatred to muster one last action, not against the world, but for it. If Naruto had executed his nemesis in the name of vengeance, he would have merely become the victor. But when finding resolution by reaching his opposition, he retrieves something much more valuable, both literally and metaphorically. Through Nagato, Naruto learned pain. And it is only through experiencing pain that endurance could be demonstrated here, thereby saving Nagato. Through this conflict, through this pain, maturity spawned. But it only matured with support. It only matured with endurance on both sides. And it is only when all these threads connect that mutual understanding is found. In this conflict, empathy alone was not enough to reach the lost. And soon, endurance on top of that would not be enough either. But for now, Naruto could rest easy on this growth. When he learned empathy, he was rewarded with the title Shinobi. And now, after enduring his hatred, he is rewarded with the title Hero of the Leaf. And eventually, after continuing to walk up the steps of his path, he will be rewarded with the title Hero of the World. But before that, Naruto would have to writhe with each step, because the road he has chosen is one that confronts all the pain of the entire shinobi world. Hey, thanks so much for watching. I wanted to take this time at the end to elucidate my standing in relation to my content. Currently, I'm not as consistent as I want to be with making videos on this channel. As much as I'd love to say that I can spend all the free time I have making videos, knowing me, I'd 100% get burned out with exhaustion quick. I go to college full-time and work a part-time job. The reality of my situation requires me to focus on my content in short bursts at a time only. So here's the dream plan. I start making enough money doing this that I can quit working part-time. That alone will give me at least double the attention I can reserve for YouTube. So if you want to see more content from me with higher frequency, the best way to help me get there is to head on over to my newly created Patreon. Obviously, just liking and commenting is already a huge help. But like I said, if you want to see me dedicating more to this craft, even a $3 pledge will help immensely. These fine people on screen have already kickstarted my journey, so please consider becoming a Patreon so you can be here as well come next video. And if you pledge $10 or more, you'll be able to get an epic shoutout along with other benefits. And I'm happy to say we already have a couple. Johnny and Sensei Krolon. Thank you so much for the early support. Means a lot. Link to my Patreon in the description down below. Oh, and I have a Discord now. We already have a thriving community there, so don't hesitate to click the link down in the description. My Discord is the best opportunity to talk with me, as I am a frequent chatter. Okie doke, that's about it for the updates. Part 2 will be out ASAP, but I want to try and make this one even better than my last part 2, so it'll probably take some time. Until then though, I'll catch y'all in the Discord, and keep updating the people on my progress over at Patreon. Spice Boy, out.
Okay, so that's the video. There we go. So yeah, I mean, again, I don't know what more to add to the video, but again, it's I love watching videos like this because it once again just reminds you how just how well written Naruto actually is. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want anyone to get it to be confused as to, you know, me saying that Naruto is, you know, it's perfect and doesn't have any flaws. No, it has flaws just like any other series. Okay, like don't get Naruto is not a perfect series, because I don't think any series is perfect. I've talked about my problems with the war arc, and I think that's where most people say that, you know, Naruto's that's where the quality of writing kind of like fell off a bit. And whether that's because, you know, everything before that was just so good that the war arc just doesn't compare, or whether or not because there's actual problems, I think it's a little bit of both. I think that, you know, because what came before it, obviously, like I said, we had the Itachi and Sasuke fight, we had the Pain and the Pain and Jiraiya fight, and then we had the Pain Invasion arc, which was just fucking phenomenal, which a lot of people would argue was like peak Naruto. And even the Five Kage Summit, you know, I mean, it's not my favorite, but it is up there. It's definitely up there in terms of quality. And I just think that there's a lot of things in the war arc that are just not really all that interesting. Like the first half of it was, in my opinion, just incredibly boring, and it's the part of the story that I revisit the least. In fact, I don't think I've went back and read it in a while. You know, I usually just read from when Madara shows up and then just continue onwards, because that's where it starts to get a little bit good again. Although even that has like a lot of problems. You know, when you go back and you look at the writing, and yeah, that's just because it's just it happens with a lot of series. You know, the longer it goes, the higher the chances of flaws actually, you know, starting to show up a bit more often, as opposed to before. As opposed to before, yeah, I can talk. As opposed to before, where there are like, you know, like one or two flaws you can find here and there. They're few and far between. But then when it comes to the war arc, like you find a way more flaws than you did before. Which again, like I said, that happens when a series goes on for a while. It's normal, because again, you know, no series is perfect. I'm willing to bet if you think of a series right now that is beloved by everyone, I guarantee you if you went back to it now, you'll find out that there's, you know, a lot of flaws. If you didn't find out about them before, you go back and you look at them now, and if you look carefully, you'll see some flaws. But with that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to leave a like, share this video, subscribe if you haven't, hit the bell for notifications. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, as well as any recommendations for videos you want me to watch. Just let me know about them in the comments, and I will react to them, guys. Don't worry. If I don't respond with like a yes, or you know, or if I like your comment, just let me know about them. I see them and I will react to them, so you don't have to worry about that. And I hope you'll join me for my next one. Bye for now.